Keep a picture of my mother's in my wallet. What is up, everybody? Station, pop, pop, boom. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals, and happy holidays. Welcome to a PCP Movie Night special Christmas edition. We've already done one of these things. We talked about the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which was needed, and it was one of those movies we totally needed. My Santa hat's really, really high. Santa hat's not the only thing really, really high. Man, I don't like the way that looks. What's going on here? Anyway, tonight we're talking about Go, a movie from 1999 directed by Doug Liman. This was his second film. It was a follow-up to Swingers, and then right after this, he jumps into Bourne Identity, and he starts that franchise. And Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Edge of Tomorrow. He's become an action movie director, but before that, he did these two awesome 90s indie-type comedies, and one of them, Go, is one of my absolute favorite Christmas movies ever. And earlier this year, I had the pleasure of being on Blame Fable Tonight, and Steph picked this movie for us to discuss. He was unfortunately not able to be there that night. So I said right there and then, like, we're going to do this at Christmas, and we got to bring in Steph. So Steph is here. What is up, my man?
Jason, I'm honored and just glad you would invite me to review, because this is one that when I picked it, I did have you in mind. So I always wanted to talk about this movie with you. So
hell yeah. And here we are tonight doing it appropriately at Christmas time, because it is a Christmas movie, right?
True.
It's all about surprises. That's the theme of this movie, everybody. Get your pencils ready. Anyway, also on that show, Perry watched it for the first time, loved it. Now he's back to talk about it again.
Are you licking my dick? Dude, this movie is fantastic, dude. It's just, if you haven't seen Go and watch the damn movie.
Yes. Stop right now. We don't even care about the views or any of that shit. Just come back after you watch it. You got to watch it. A homie of mine actually watched it for the first time last night. And he goes, bruh, that movie's fucking awesome. And I was like, yes, it sure is.
Dylan hasn't even watched it yet.
I know. He told me that, man. And I was like, okay, blew my mind. Dylan's still watching and been here tonight. However, we do got Brooks, who I made watch a long time ago, right? What is up, man?
What's up?
You excited to talk about Go?
I sure am.
Delaney wasn't able to make it tonight, but I do have his rating, and we'll talk about that at the appropriate time. Here is the illustrious $60 Blu-ray I bought, but it's shiny. I don't know if you can really pick up on that, but it's actually kind of chromium shiny. But like, I owned this movie on VHS. There it is right there. Ah, look at that.
Oh, wow.
Gorgeous. I had it on DVD, and I never did the upgrade, and it's been out of print for a while. But this was one of those movies that when it came up for Blame Fable, I was like, not only do I got to rewatch this movie, because I hadn't seen it for a few years at that point, I need to make sure I own it. And I overpaid for it, but I'm cool with it because it was still sealed, and I opened it up and all that. I fucking love this movie. Go is goes my jam. Okay, so 1999, life begins at 3 a.m. This was a mantra for me and my homies. This is our life. Going to shady dudes' houses that we barely know, filled with all kinds of electronic goods to try to get some drugs. Like, look at the
So many
attention to
shirtless
detail.
dudes. So
How
many
many
shirtless dudes.
shirtless dudes have we been to their fucking apartment? It's filled to get drugs.
It's like you have to act like it's normal too.
And it's filled with stereo equipment and boxes of fucking shit. And like, that was the first time I ever watched like DVDs and shit. I was like, what's a DVD? It's at a drug dealer's house. Anyway, this was my life though. This was me and my friends trying to find shit to do. I went to warehouse rave parties, right? I went to the shady drug dealer's house. We just hung out in the car, parked on the side of the road. Where are we going to go? Maybe it's just to IHOP, you know, to drink coffee and smoke cigarettes for 4 fucking hours till like 4 a.m. But that's just what we did. And we would get into these little adventures, right? And I had all these different pockets of friends, and we would all on the same nights get into these little adventures. And sometimes they would like cross over, right? And so like that's just like nightlife, right? And I love it. This is a Christmas movie, but it's about youth rave culture in particular in the late 90s. Directed by Doug Liman. This was originally set to be an independent film, but the company who put in most of the financing or something got bought by Columbia. So then it became a big push, because if you were there at the time like me, you remember MTV and Columbia Records, Sony Columbia, they got behind this shit. They put they put No Doubt on this soundtrack, right? At that point, No Doubt hadn't released a new song in like 4 years or something, right? Like 3 or 4 years. So New was the first new No Doubt song we had gotten. Like Rings of Saturn hadn't even come out, right? So it was such a big deal. They put one of the biggest hits of the year, Lynn, Steal My Sunshine, in the movie. I hate that goddamn song, by the way. But
I used to love it as a kid.
Utilized really well in there. Basically, I love this movie. I got a great story about it. So I had heard about this movie. Now, me and my friends, we had seen Swingers. We were fans of that. So when I heard that there was a new movie by the guy that did Swingers, and for the first time in my life, I heard the term Tarantino-esque, which basically means it's told in a non-linear fashion, right? So I had heard that, and that was cool. But we went to go see the fucking Matrix, okay? 1999, we're going to go see The Matrix. We work at the damn movie theater. We get up in there and they're like, y'all, there ain't no room in The Matrix. You can't see it tonight. We're like, what? And so I told everybody, let's go watch Go. It's from Doug Liman. My headphones keep coming off because it's damn Santa hat. It's from the dude that did Swingers. It's supposed to be good. Let's go see it. Me and my homies had the best fucking time. I believe Hammer Time Holshoe was actually there with me. I know my buddy Abe was. It was such a wild time. I love this movie. I think it's goddamn impeccable. I think it's amazing. There are so many Tarantino 90s edgy crime funny movies that came out to rip that kind of shit off after the success of Pulp Fiction. All of them pale in comparison to this one. This movie also carves out its own identity. I don't know many movies like this. Now, there are movies about like 90s rave culture that I love. Groove is one of them, and Human Traffic is another one. 2 really good movies. They do not hold a candle to this movie. This one feels so goddamn authentic to me. I swear to God, I worked in that exact grocery store. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been there. And a funny story about that grocery store, they purchased the rights to film there. The owner of the grocery store uses the money to remodel the grocery store. They get there and they're like, no. So they had to spend more money to repaint it back to the old retro look and then paint it back afterwards. And in the commentary, Doug Liman's like, it never occurred to the grocery store owner that we bought it because it looked like one of those outdated old fucking grocery stores. And I love this fucking movie, the cast, the music. I goddamn love everything about it. Let's get into it. Steph, what do you think about this film overall?
I'm right there with you. I remember I've always not been a film head, but I've always liked movies since being a younger kid. And I remember seeing the trailer for this when I was like 11 years old and just thought it looked cool. I wouldn't see this until years later when I was like 17 or 18. But at the time I was like on this kick where I was like, oh, if it doesn't have any like fighting or some sci-fi shit to it, I'm not gonna, I had seen other things that wasn't in that vein, but I just was like, I don't want to watch it if it doesn't have any action in it. But I saw this movie and it kind of opened up the door for me to giving films outside of action a chance. The dialogue between the characters, like it feels like real conversation and banter between people, and that always stuck with me. That there was the energy to this movie that even though it was an action movie, there was just this momentum to it throughout the entire movie that I really enjoyed, and had a profound effect on me in my film taste throughout the years. So, and I think Doug Liman, I forgot that he's become such an action director, but you named like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Edge of Tomorrow. That's probably Tom Cruise's best movie in a long time, just because it's so dope.
That's not a Mission Impossible film. Those
Exactly.
actually getting kind of fucking better. It's crazy. Mark McGrath
Yeah.
is in the house. Do you think Quentin Tarantino gets residual checks for this movie? Probably not. But
It is kind of like Pulp Fiction.
it's like that. But it's one of those movies too that almost like defies genre identification. Like back in the days of the video store when we had to watch this shit on a video cassette, right? Where do you put this? Do you put it in action? Because it's got action sequences. It's got a really good car sequence. Like that car chase sequence here is awesome. It's a comedy. It's incredibly funny. It gets dark and dramatic though. It's about crime. It's crime fiction, but it's also, like I said, a comedy. Like where do you fucking put it in the video store? And I love movies like that. And I loved them then. And this movie, on top of being a Christmas movie, like that just adds to the allure because it's something that you have a good excuse to watch it at least once a year. Harry, you watched this movie for the first time this year. You fell in love with it. You've watched it many times since. What do you think about this film overall?
This film is highly relatable. Like we get like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and it's like a sliver of that time period, but it's like not a familiar thing for me. Like that's not something I would have experienced. But going to like a shady drug dealer's house in the middle of the night when your connects out of town, and you got to muster up the tenacity to like push through and just sit there all awkward, weird make out kisses. You're like, cool, it'll be over soon. It'll be over. Why isn't it over yet? What's going on?
That whole bit where they're like, you can't jump over that and go to Simon's dealer. It's like against the rules.
Yeah. It's like that's real, you know, like people feel those things in those situations. And it's like they hit the nail on the head so perfectly that it's just like this is a movie that will forever be watched, especially by our generation.
Yeah, for sure, man. It really holds up. And it's just so tightly paced. It's an hour 40. And if they made this movie today, some pretentious asshole at A24 would make this a 2 hour, 45-minute long movie. Like we know it. We can't even get a fucking 3-hour Batman movie these days. And they would fuck this one up. But this is tightly paced. It's got a good flow to it. And it does still feel and ring true. There are certain things about it that are obviously very 90s, you know, but it still rings true. The most unbelievable thing about this, though, the most unrelatable thing is how people smoke weed in these films, especially Go. They take one hit. It's like they fucking just went on some DMT. They're like
crack or something. Yeah.
But when I first started dabbling in that area of life, we only had a little bit. So like you would hit it and you would try to hold on to it.
Yeah, you were right. The whole bit about holding it in longer than the other person.
It's bullshit, but it's
like the next hit and shit.
You are right.
Broke. I don't got no more money, you know.
Dude, the original joints I used to smoke were basically mostly wrapped rolling papers with a little bit of bud in there. I thought weed tasted like fucking rolling papers for the longest time. Brooks, you love this movie.
Yeah.
Your experience with this movie. What do you think about it overall? It's probably been a while since you've seen it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like early 2000s was the last time I remember seeing it. I remember liking a lot, though, even back then. But like I'd forgotten most of what was going on. The only thing I can remember was that somebody sold allergy pills at a rave. But yeah, this movie it holds up really well. I mean, it definitely reminds me of early 2000s times. Like even though it's set in I would assume it's set in the late 90s when the movie came out. But I mean, like it feels very early 2000s.
There's little difference between like the late 70s and the early 80s. There's very little difference between the late 90s and the early 2000s. Right?
Yeah. It's kind of like we're transitioning a little bit. But things were basically not that different, but they're about to get a whole lot different later on, you know. But the whole the way these young people are like, living, how hard it is. Like she can't pay her rent and everything. Like I totally get all that, because I remember back then, dude, it's like, it's hard to be on your own, as a young person back at that time. Like, everything costs so much, like just getting, enough money to pay for your spot could like break you, you'd barely have enough money to feed yourself. And like,
especially in LA. They're in LA.
Yeah. And like here it was pretty hard, but I mean, I can only imagine when like Los Angeles or New York or somewhere like that, where everything's like crazy expensive. But yeah, it just, nostalgia, I guess. Just sent me back to the old days.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of familiar situations, right?
Yeah.
All the fucking weirdos we had to deal with so we could get high.
So true.
You got to put up with some weirdos, man. That's why I love in Pineapple Express.
It's like they know they can get away with it too, because they're like, oh, you want to get high?
You wanted drugs, yeah.
Like,
Right.
No shit, brother.
And how many times does somebody show up and be like, what the fuck is he on? And they're like, oh, he's on PCP. He's on fucking X. Like, some shit. Like, we're like, this dude's just rolling on the fucking floor. He's like rolling in the middle of the fucking floor, literally. Is that why they call it rolling? But I mean, those were fun times. And I don't know about y'all, but I did go to those warehouse rave parties, and they captured that whole thing. Some random fucking place. Usually here it was like a military warehouse, like a surplus warehouse. They would rent those things out. There's a few of them here because we have the Redstone Arsenal, and they would just rent them out, and they would just put up all these lights, bring in some DJs, and people would come in. They'd be doing their drugs out in the parking lot. They'd be going in there, they'd be giving people orange juice and water and shit like that. Like, I mean, they nailed it, because Doug Liman is actually the cinematographer of this film. And we'll get more into that later. But a lot of this is guerrilla filmmaking. A lot of those really cool shots, not like the action set pieces in Las Vegas, for instance, but like some of the rave shots, some of the shots of just seeing the streets, right? That's just Doug Liman driving in his car by himself on the streets of LA with his camera hanging out of the fucking window.
That's awesome, dude.
Just going.
No shit.
That was a way that they made movies back in the fucking 90s, man. Like the indie cinema was coming alive, and people like Kevin Smith and Tarantino and Richard Linklater were like making movies on nothing and then making a big name for themselves. Yeah. Everybody was trying to do that. Like, I wanted to do that. I was like, let's go out there. Let's just fucking do it. You don't get that shit anymore, even though now it's easier to do. And back then it wasn't digital, right? We're not in the DV age yet. So this dude's got a fucking movie camera. And at one point in the commentary, he says he almost ran over a pedestrian, but the shot was so good, but they had to have this big discussion. They thought that they couldn't put the shot in the movie because he literally almost ran over this fucking person. So anyway, this movie is highlighted by an amazing cast. And at the time, a lot of them weren't very relatively known. Katie Holmes was probably the biggest name here.
Dawson's Creek.
But there are some people in this movie that really I love. Taye Diggs, Breckenmeyer. They are hilarious. The dude that plays Simon has very little film career after this, and that's boggling because he's so good in this movie.
Yeah.
And Sarah Polley's great. The dude that plays Manny's great. But if I had to pick one favorite, and here lately I've been selfish because we are the award-winning pop culture philosophers nowadays. Nope. But I'm going first because I don't want anybody to steal my dude, my number one fucking celebrity crush, Timothy Olyphant, who has usurped George Clooney on the list. I love Timothy Olyphant so much. He plays Todd Gaines, the drug dealer. And he's the drug dealer that you're nervous to meet, but you're kind of like into him in a way. So he's kind of like Beavis and Butthead with Todd. That dude's name was Todd in Beavis and Butthead, wasn't it? You remember that guy? There was a guy who was like the bully to Beavis and Butthead. And he would beat the shit out of them and ridicule them, but they would get hearts in their eyes when they saw him. Dude, and I fell in love with Timothy Olyphant. First of all, sexy, menacing, threatening, funny. He's able to make us unnerved when we first meet him. But then when you look at it, you get it. At first, you just think he's being weird and creepy and making what's her name? Take off her shirt, right? Yeah. And then you realize what's going on. And I love that you don't hear what he says there, but then she repeats it in a comedic bit. The way that this movie goes from really dark to comedic and to relatable, and the way that a lot of these actors, in particular Olyphant, holy cow, he's sinister when you first see him. He's more sinister when he shows up with a gun. He's gonna fucking kill her, bro. He's gonna fucking kill her. Like that, you're a drug dealer in
It's
LA.
business.
Like it's business, right? It's not personal. We've just been talking about this for the last 3 weeks, right? But at the same time, then when you see him again and Katie Holmes is there, and at first you're kind of like, oh shit, oh no, girl, no. But then you're into it, and he's charming again, and he's funny again, and it
The family circus bit.
The family circus bit is hilarious, man. And then the whole bit when Simon at the end, when he's just so eager to see this happen, this dude get his arm shot, you know, like it's not the same if I don't fucking, if they know it's coming, man. But I'm
all right.
Todd Gaines is my favorite character in this, and it made me pay attention to every movie and every project that he's been in since. Was this movie? Even his little tiny bit part in like Gone in 60 Seconds, I love. He's got a great line of dialogue there when one of the cars gets wrecking ball through a wall, and Timothy Olyphant, one of the detectives, comes up there and he goes, "Are you okay? Are you all right? Are you sure? Because you just went through a wall." His delivery, his delivery is amazing. What's a performance you want to highlight, Steph?
I like Sarah Polley, bro. She's we were talking about this on Pandorum. There's a female character that, you know, they're not vulnerable, so they're like believable with like how much ass they kick throughout the movie. Sarah Polley is like, she seems like someone, she's believable in how she holds her own throughout the film and how she thinks on her feet, how she takes charge with a lot of shit, doesn't let herself get bullied. She was dope in Dawn of the Dead. I was just saying this earlier. I think she carried that movie on her shoulders. But I really like Sarah Polley. Like she almost felt like, I know it's an anthology, almost different characters, but she felt like the main character for me, and everyone else branched off from that. But honorable mention, Manny. I think Manny was hilarious.
Dude, Manny's great, dude. Manny's so good. And there's the scene with the fucking Macarena. I was listening to the soundtrack again. I love the soundtrack. We'll get into that. But I do hate it when that Macarena fucking thing comes on, because on the soundtrack, that's like a goddamn 6-minute, 7-minute fucking remix of that song. It's so fucking obnoxious, but it's so perfect in the movie.
Yeah, it fits.
So and his bit with the cat might be one of my favorite scenes, when the cat's just like, and whatever the fuck he's like,
the subtitles and shit.
He's
like, I like after the Macarena bit, like he's like scanning himself, and it just shows the camera like looking at Sarah Polley's like just giving him this look, and he's just zoned the fuck out, just scanning shit.
What a great fucking bit, man. I love him. And Sarah Polley's great in this. Rana's her character, and you're right, she is kind of like the main character, even though she's not the main character throughout a lot of it, right? Which is interesting. It really shows you the strength of these performances, this structure and this writing, and these characters. What about you, Perry? What's a performance you want to highlight?
I want to go with the $20 blowjob, Simon. You know, like, dude, from the beginning, he's like, oh, the one chick was like, oh, don't bother her, she just had a 14-hour shift, and he goes over with a mistletoe. Dude, I died laughing, dude, every time, dude. It's like his little one-liners is like that one asshole friend that's always around that like no one really takes too serious, but he's always goofing around, and he's just fun to be around, you know.
An endearing asshole.
Yeah.
There's something charming about him.
He's got that innocent charm that like somebody like Jay and Jay and Silent Bob kind of has that. Like he's kind of a douche, but he's so innocent, and like he doesn't realize it, right? And he has
girls.
He has a great night. Yeah, you had sex with 2 girls. You shot a bouncer. You had sex with 2 girls. He's a fucking great character. I love him so much, and you feel like he should be in more stuff, right? Because
you said he's the one that, that's shocking, to be honest. He's got a big presence in this movie too, to be honest.
He's so great when he just crashes the wedding chapel just to try to pick up some bridesmaids, right? And he puts on a fake accent like he needed to because he's already fucking British, and his whole fucking chemistry with Taye Diggs makes that whole goddamn Las Vegas bit, man. It's like their whole shit, you know, when he's like, did I tell you how much I like your jacket? And he's like, oh, you really think? And he just walks away. He's like, bitch, what about your shirt? This ain't Hawaii. Your whole thing, like, whatever you do not order champagne. I'd like
Tantra, baby.
Expensive bottle of champagne. Just, this is the most fleshy bit. Do it right here. No, I do.
And I like in the
like the last dialogue of the movie, right, where he's like, "It's all right, I'm okay."
Yeah, I'm all right. Katie Holmes just
Yeah, that's some good stuff, man. That's a great pick, man. Simon,
Yeah.
really, dude. And I remember when we first saw this in the movie theater, me and my friends were hysterically laughing during all of that stuff in the Vegas bit when they're being like they're caught in the alley and the truck comes and plows through and they're spinning around. Breckin Meyer's character is like hanging out of the goddamn car and Taye Diggs has to fucking grab him back in and shit. All of that, man. So fucking funny. But at the same time has that level of weight and gravity, which is something that all the characters bring. And I love how he goes from like fucking around with the gun to just like shooting the dude, like back the fuck away. like all of a sudden he's in a Guy Ritchie film.
Sacked up, yeah.
yeah.
What about you, Brooks? What's the character you want to highlight?
I like what's his name? Marcus, the black guy.
Taye Diggs, yes.
Yes. He was so funny because like I think he had like my favorite line of the movie I think was when he was talking, him and the dude are talking about dude's heritage. And he's like, motherfucker, this ain't roots.
Yeah, and he goes, I want to see a picture of this Nubian princess. And Breckin Meyer cracks me up because then that's when he does the whole, I don't keep a picture of my mother's mother in my wallet.
The strip club scene was funny when he's like, the bouncer walks in, he's like, I told you not to touch him. Taye Diggs is just sitting there like shaking his head. He automatically assumes it's Taye Diggs, and she's like, no, the other guy.
The other one. And
so
then
I love the bit where dude leaves the money on the counter. He's like, motherfucker. And then apparently when the dude hands him his keys to his fucking sports car,
yeah,
they're like,
he's like, you know what,
dude, I just do not understand how somebody could have like a car like that and just toss their keys to some dude.
To just anybody.
Well, one thing to point out, Brooks, is they do the bit with the jacket to point out that, and if you notice in the background, all the valets have a gold fucking jacket on. Like, that is an ugly ass jacket. Let's be fucking honest.
Yeah.
Okay?
A little mustard, you know.
But were they colored contact lenses? Did she now have one green eye and one brown eye?
That's my story.
And it was on the tip of my.
It was on the tip of my dick, man.
I told that story last year.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
See, that felt like a real friendship, like like shit like that.
It's like he's so put upon because he's like the straight man, just here to have a good time, and he's just coming to pick up chicks and have fun. But his idiot friend is like just getting him dragged into all kinds of bullshit.
Yep, and Simon's that dude that can't fucking follow the no hands rule in the fucking champagne room.
Like a stifler,
Like,
Yeah.
That had me like being like, what? So you can't put your hands? That's like,
no
what
touching.
the fuck?
Yo, you've never been in one of those situations. No, you can't use your hands. But
that's bullshit, dude.
It's not.
Money talks.
You just got to get to know the right ones. Anyway, what are we talking about here?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Taye Diggs is great in this movie, and there's so many other great characters. Their homies are great. Jay Mohr and Scott Wolf are amazing as a gay couple, and the way that they structure that, like when you first watch it, you don't know what's going on. You think William Fichtner is like trying to pick him up or something and do some kind of weird thing with his wife with them, and it just that whole thing unravels, and it's so fucking good.
Jay Mohr was awesome. He was one of my favorites.
Amway?
Yeah, you want to, it's Confederated products. It's a different line of product for the company. It's a different quality of product. I love that shit, man. William Fichtner's great in this one too, man.
Yo, check out the abs on this one.
No shit. And
What?
He's like,
Nothing.
You can do laundry on this, and he looks at it. He's, no, I'm just out of it, man.
Yeah.
There's like a good 10 seconds of it, I just being like.
You don't get to see William Fichtner in this movie too.
You do, man.
Honest.
No, try it. What's that smell like? CK1, right? But it's not. Oh my god, this movie, it subverts expectations. Like when you first meet him, he's the bad cop guy, and then they kind of make a joke out of him, and he becomes like a charming, endearing character. And that's something that happens throughout this movie because of the incredibly well-written script by John August, also the writer of Titan AE, which is a fantastic movie.
What?
Yes. John August is amazing. Just look up his credits. He's attached to a lot of great movies. Go with being one of my favorites. The script is super tight. I love the framing of it. Doug Liman did kind of tweak with some of that while they were filming and while they were editing, but it worked. It works 100%. the cinematography, for Doug Liman himself to be the cinematographer as well as the director, that means this is more his vision, you know? And the commentary is done with the editor, and him and the editor have a good like camaraderie, right? So this is a very singular vision that we're getting, and I think that's why it's so good. Quickly, tightly paced, perfectly shot. Even like there's guerrilla filmmaking going on in here, and studio filmmaking, right? And the way it's positioned together, it works. It's a flawless it's a flawless entertainment machine, right? You get into the fucking story, and then they drop you off, and they go back, right? And it's a little discombobulating at first, and then you go into another story, but you so quickly get into it. All the times that it jumps into the different stories, it all just immediately becomes entertaining again. It never lets up. It's relentless. I love the editing. I love the cinematography. I love the way it's shot. It is incredibly realistic, y'all. I love it. What do you think about the style and structure, Steph?
You just said everything best. But one thing that stands out with me is I read somewhere Joss Whedon was I know no one likes him much nowadays, but he's explained something about Firefly at the time, and he was like, in his eyes, every character is a main character, and you should be able at any point focus on them and have, you know, just as much gravitas and drama and just weight to any character in your story, whether they be a side character or not. And that, you know, that stands out to me in this film. Like you said, like they finish one story and switch to the next, but it's immediately interesting. You want to know what's going on. And I like how they all tie into each other. Like, it's like we'll see a flashback scene and see how that character's journey continued after that, you know, after they parted ways. It was
or even little bits like when you get to see who's driving the yellow Miata. But you because when you see it at first time, you think somebody's gunning for her. Like it's somebody who got ripped off by her, right? And then seeing the two sides of the phone conversation between Todd and Simon, right? Where he's like, I don't know. And he just looks real creepily at Katie Holmes. He's like, maybe. And then on the other side, he goes, you gonna fuck her? Right? Like, just putting that together, it's a really fun bit, right?
Yeah. But it just had a great energy and momentum throughout the entire film. A lot is that I want to say credits to the writer, because I feel like that is on the script, but like you said, it's more of a vision of Doug Liman. So I like how he was able to work that into his vision. Just good job.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it is a script by John August. John August has an amazing screenwriting career. Let's just take a look real quick.
He just blew my mind.
Shit, he was the writer of the Aladdin remake that Guy Ritchie did.
Wow.
Oh man, he's got some rough ones.
I haven't seen that one though.
Oh, he wrote Big Fish. I forget about that. When he wrote Big Fish, he wrote Charlie's Angels. I like that first Charlie's Angels movie. I'm not gonna lie. Titan A.E., Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Corpse Bride. But then he did like Prince of Persia, Dark Shadows, and But Aladdin is one. I really like the new Aladdin movie. John August is awesome.
I haven't seen that. Yeah.
Anyway, Perry, what do you think about the style and structure of this film?
I want to say I like what Steph said. The energy, like the moment the movie turns on, you just get smacked with it. And then you get that ending there. Who would have thunk it? You know, it's like, what does she mean by that? The whole time, what do you mean by that? And then you finally, and it's like, wow, dude. You know, I like how the constant was the supermarket, that little supermarket place. Like that was just like really cool. Like it's like, boom, here's this one thing. We showed it to you like briefly in the beginning, but it's like we're gonna keep coming back here. And it's like I really like that. I thought it was really cool. I like how you said guerrilla filmmaking. That's like a really nice term that I've never heard before, and I like that. That was really cool. Cinematography, it was perfect. I really liked it,
especially for a dude hanging out of his fucking car.
Yeah, that's great.
With and it, like you said, it's not a handheld digital camera like the ones they can get away with today. It's like a hefty. So they were really putting in some work.
Yeah, no shit, man. Really good stuff. I was very happy to see Doug Liman's career really take off, and I'm sure that dude's made some money, man. Made some money. Brooks, speaking of making money, making moolah, what is up with you? What do you think about style and structure of this film?
I like the style of this movie. Like it's very like during that time where in the late 90s where you could get away with kind of doing a movie with like, a non-linear timeline because, Pulp Fiction was successful. So like if you could do it, if any studio could like get the success of Pulp Fiction, like they'd be willing to, take the risk on it. And it's interesting, this one, like, because at first it just seems like, this kind of slice of life comedy, and then all of a sudden it like resets, and then you get the second story and then the third story. So I thought it was nice. It was fun seeing like the different perspectives on like all the different things, and in the end it feels like it's just come full circle. Like it's just back in the grocery store, and like all she's managed, she got beat to shit, but like she just lived to see another day. She got her rent money, and she got $20 left over for her savings account. So, yeah, I think
was kind of
great. It's a very entertaining movie throughout. Like every character I think is interesting. Every story is interesting in its own way. Like for characters who are so flawed, they're like very likable.
Oh, yeah.
Unlike Storm of the Century.
Too many characters that you cared nothing about.
I've seen that.
It's on Hulu if you want to. But anyway, one of the things I love about this, the style of this movie is it's able to take a darker approach at times. It gets really dark, but it still ends with a nice, happy bow. Nothing really bad happens to anybody. I mean, some fucked up shit happens, some scary shit happens, but everybody's okay at the end of the day. Even fucking Manny, who's just like our own Manny, just buried in an alley somewhere, just sitting there waiting for the fucking, like, because he's scared, because he's just got a premonition from the fucking cat that he was going to die.
Yeah.
Rana saved his life. I also love Sarah Polley and Katie Holmes. The fake names they use are Kelly and Donna. That's that's 90210.
Is it? Oh,
so, if you don't remember, that's Kelly and Donna.
I was named after Luke Perry from 90210.
Dude!
No shit.
My name's Perry Luke.
You're even cooler.
Wow.
Oh my god. Harry Luke. Hell yeah, dude. That's fucking cool. Another thing that brings the energy to this movie, and once again though, just to make sure that's understood, the way it can go dark and then comedic. And by the end of the film, we've been through this ride, this roller coaster of genre and emotion, and it ends happy, and you leave that movie with a smile on your face, even though you've kind of gone through the ringer a little bit at times. Obviously, it's not like Tarantino, really, because some people don't make it to the end of the film. But I'm glad nobody died, is what I'm trying to say. But they kept it heavy and light at the same time. That's something that mixing tones like that's very difficult for filmmakers. Yeah. And so the fact that they do it so well here is fantastic. But part of the energy is in the music for me. Now, this music is definitely soundtrack based, but there is composition from BT. Now, BT is an electronic. Yeah, BT is an electronic music artist.
And synth pop
was his first film score, right? And he actually does the score of the film, and it's highlighted by his piece "Believer." Like that's him. You always hear it when they go back to the rave, like "I'm a believer, leave, right?" So all of that stuff, but then a lot of just the like smaller little bits. That's all him. BT has gone on to a great career as far as sound. I mean, he's got his own right as BT, the electronic music guy, right? But he's also done the music for Gone in 60 Seconds, Tomb Raider, Fast and Furious, Monster, Stealth, Zoolander. So there you go, right?
Wow.
So he defined the music scores of a lot of these 2000s movies. You know what I'm saying? That electronic kind of techno-y kind of beat to it. But then just the songs picked are amazing. The Massive Attack song is one of my favorites. When Todd's having Rana turn around, take her for Todd, make sure that she's not wearing a wire or something. That Massive Attack song works so fucking well.
Oh yeah.
Is that movie in Snatch?
It was in Snatch.
Song?
It's in the Snatch when the trailer's burning.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought that was the same song. I wasn't sure.
When me ma's trailer's burning. So yeah.
And the dag.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no shit. The periwinkle there. But we need to get Snatch one day. But I love it. The very beginning stuff where it's like, what is rock and roll? Doom, 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 doom. It's got an energy and a vibe, that No Doubt song. It all just flows so well. There's an Eagle Eye Cherry song called Shooting Up in Vain. There's a remix of it in this. I had the soundtrack. I had the CD. I listened to it all the goddamn time. I fucking loved it. I would skip that Macarena shit and I would skip the Lynn song. Right. But they got Lenny Kravitz in here. And my mama said, it's just such a great remix of Magic Carpet Ride. It's just so fucking good. And the music never lets up either. And it's so, sometimes we watch things and we're like, oh, this just kind of filmed like a music video, right?
Right.
There are elements of that here, but it never distracts you from the idea that this is a film and a story. What do you think about the music in the film, Steph?
I dug it. I didn't notice as much as the Lenny Kravitz I missed, but it reminded me of, like Brooks said, like the 90s, early 2000s, like that whole sound. Well, now that you said it was like composed by BT, it makes sense. I know him through like more pop music and shit, like NSYNC.
Yeah.
But
okay, yeah, gotcha.
But that I dug it. It's like it's a nostalgia vibe that I dig. It's, it takes me back to how I felt when I first saw that trailer at 11 years old. And because I wanted to see that movie. There's something about it. But it's a nice nostalgic trip. I think it definitely fits the rave vibe they were going for, like, perfectly. So I dug it.
If anybody's interested, BT, my favorite BT album is Movement and Still Life.
Okay.
That shit's amazing. Definitely check it. It's like his third or fourth album or something like that. I love BT, but I'm into like techno-y, ravey music. Brooks knows that. I've been into that shit for a long, long time. I like the electronic music. What about you, Perry? What do you think about the music in the film?
What is rock and roll, dude? From the beginning of the movie, it doesn't stop. It's awesome, man. I don't really know that much about like techno or like electronic music like that, but man, this movie was just hitting, dude. The whole time it was hitting. Like you said before, the energy, man, like that's the perfect word to describe this movie, man. It's like it has that energy to it that you connect with, man. The music was awesome, man. Shake it, booty. Like it's so good, dude. It was so good.
Hell yeah, man. What about you, Brooks, man? Did you notice the music in this one?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of presses a little bit of the nostalgia buttons in a lot of ways for me too, because I was like back in the late 90s, like when I was in high school, like your music was like a part of your personality, like everybody was kind of in a way defined by what kind of music they liked. And it was a time when electronic was getting mixed with a lot of different kinds of musics, and like it's kind of like indie rock was like towards the late 90s, early 2000s, I think, where a lot of like kind of indie rock bands would try a little more electronic stuff. And when it worked. Like, Beck is like a great artist who kind of toes that line.
I know Beck.
He adapted quite well.
And I like the music a lot. There are a few songs I don't like. I didn't care for the Lynn song because that was a song that was popular when I remember it was popular, and I did not like it.
I'll tell you what, though, it's been 20 years, and I'm kind of a little bit more over it. And
it's not as bad as
they use it. The placement in the movie is so good because it's when they take the car.
Picking up on a journey and shit. Yeah,
like it doesn't like mess up the scene.
And they steal the car.
But like it is a song I just like. Oh man,
you kind of remember like
whenever that song was on the fucking radio all the time.
I fucking hated that song, man. Me and Brooks were like, "Fuck this song." It was all over MTV. That stupid slow mo. They're smiling. Like, who the fuck are you?
They were a one-hit wonder, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were.
But I know you're gonna get mad, but I don't like No Doubt very much. So I didn't like New. But I mean, New is not a terrible song either. Like there's songs that I hate more. So
it fit the movie.
I think overall the soundtrack is quite good.
Yeah, I do love the soundtrack overall, man. I really, really do. All right. What's the movie trying to say? What's the theme? What's this movie speaking to you, Steph?
Did not think of that. Jeez. There's always danger around the corner. I mean,
no, you're right. I mean, that's a part of it.
Could be
I've seen,
police,
like-
criminals. You never know.
People trying to sell Amway.
Yes.
They maybe they were reaching for be careful what you wish for in a way. Not really, but like Sarah Polley's character was she wanted more money for the rent, and it's like she could have gotten more money for the rent, but look what she had to go through for all that. The Scottish guy, no, the British guy, he wanted to have a good time, and he had quite a good time. The Scott Wolf and Jay Mohr, I don't really have anything for them, but they were already established actors, and they got caught up in some bullshit.
That's
Yes.
about trust, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Is it okay to have a radio this close to my balls? I mean, it's safe enough.
They had some of the best bits. Jay Mohr was cool,
man. Oh, they were both so fucking good in this movie, man. Like I literally had to retrain him from the throat up.
I grabbed him by his ears.
October. That's so funny. His head got so much better in early October. It's so good because then it goes there, and it doesn't. So many movies of this time would have played the gay aspect just for humor, and they do it from humor, but from a different perspective where it works, and it works so fucking well. I think it's really solid. What about you, Perry? What's this movie saying to you?
I want to say I don't actually think it's saying anything more of just a slice in the life of here's these young adults in the early 2000s, and look at the wildness that could happen. And it's just like, that's why I think it feels familiar, because we've all, or some of us have been down these roads where it's like a Friday night, and then you wake up Saturday morning and you're like, oh my God, can you believe what we just did last night? Yep. And then you wake up Saturday morning and you do a whole nother fucking adventure.
So what are we doing tonight? Yeah.
Your buddy shows up at the end. It's like, what are we doing for New Year's?
Yeah. It's like, it kind of like, that's just like, it's just a slice. Like my kids are going to be like, what was it like living in 2000? You better put on Go.
Exactly. Like I think it's comparable to something like Dazed and Confused. But Dazed and Confused is for the 70s. This is for like the early 2000s, late 90s, right? It is a slice of life, and that is its own theme, where it shows the ordinary, but it's showing the extraordinary within the ordinary. Like everybody in this movie has a fucking crazy ass adventure that's going to be a story they tell for the rest of their lives. Do you remember that time I was selling people fucking chewable aspirin for $20 a fucking pill? Do you remember that? And then I got.
Remember we went to fucking Vegas and got sick.
Those fucking. Is it more like a Zoom or like a wave? It's
like
really good if
loading,
you do it. Like a lot of pot. Like smoke a lot of pot when you do it.
Like a lot.
I love it. Well put, man. Well put, everybody. What about you, Brooks? What's it speaking to you?
I think it's about just living to see another day. Like every story, like the protagonist is just, is in the end, it's just about, making it through. Like with Ron's stories, like, she's broke as shit. She's working herself to death and still isn't able to like pay her bills. But, and like she gets an idea, like, easy money. And, despite the risk, in the end, she comes out, but, not unscathed. And then, in the second story, Simon, like he's out to just, have a good time, and, he gets it. And at the end, he might be a little worse for the wear. He's probably got like a hole in his arm.
That was really fucking close, by the way. I'm like, could you, like, I shot you from 8 feet away. Could you, like, put it right up?
Right on.
And then there's Adam and Zach, who are, they're just trying to get out of a possession charge. And, they have to go along with all this bullshit with William Fichtner's character and trying to get him to sell fucking Amway.
I tell you what, come to dinner with me and my wife, our Christmas dinner, and then I'll sign the papers. How about that?
And then they end up like almost killing somebody on accident. But it
was the one they let go earlier. I didn't notice that until like that was Sarah Polley, and they saved her earlier, only to put her in a worse situation. Almost.
Exactly, man. And then think about like their story there, but we're like, they're going through this journey. Should we leave her? Should we go find her? Like Jay Mohr even thinks for a second he's going to kill her, and then he's like, "Nope, new plan. I can't." Girl, right? But all that stuff, and then when they leave her on the car and the car alarm's going off and everybody goes and they go call 911. He goes, Jay Mohr looks like, see, we did the right thing.
They look so satisfied with themselves. They're like,
Girl in the ditch, that's our problem. Girl out of the ditch, that's her problem.
Right? I mean, that guy with the gun looked like he was going to kill her, right? So, like,
in a way, we saved her.
Let's rationalize it.
Exactly. For me, y'all have all hit it on the head. It's about everybody having a story. It's about there's always something around the corner. You never know what's going to come, right? And that's going to tie into what I'm about to really say here. The movie tells us in the first fucking scene. Why do they do that bit with Katie Holmes in the beginning? Why? Number one, Katie Holmes is the biggest name in this movie. We got to feature her a little bit more. But it's because what's the first thing she says? You know what I like about Christmas? And this is a Christmas movie, so it's got a Christmas theme. I like the surprises.
Yeah.
When you think you know what's in the box and you think you know 100% what somebody has gotten you, you open it up, it's something different. Wow, surprise. Just like me and you here right the fuck now. This movie is about surprise. This movie is about no matter where you think you are, no matter what rut you think you are, you can't pay your rent. You're stuck in a loop of fiending for sex and drinking. Simon, for instance, wakes up in a trunk. And what does Taye Diggs? What does he say? Your ass passed out before we left L.A. They put your ass in a fucking trunk. This is the dude chasing highs. Then you got Jay Mohr and Scott Wolf, Zach and Adam, who are trying to escape this stuff, right? So no matter what rut you may be in, no matter what cycle you're in, you never know what's around the corner. It's like Gerard Way says in one of my favorite MCR songs, Planetary Go. That's funny. It's called Planetary Go. He's like, there might be something right past the turnpike bend, but you just never know unless you what? Go. This movie is about movement. This movie is about going forward. No matter where you are, you can't pay your bills. You're stuck in a fucking a cycle of addiction. You're fucking in trouble with the law. You're cheating on your partner. They're cheating on you. It doesn't matter what your shit life is like. Keep going because shit's going to change. You'll be goddamn surprised. So don't be surprised when you're surprised. Does that make sense?
Who would have thunk it?
Exactly. So it's a Christmas movie. So there you go. All right, time to rate the film. That. You out there in the chat. And Fable says, glad you guys put me on this flick. Hell yeah. You out there in the chat, out of 5, you digs. What do you give Go? Now, before we start, I will say Jelani, who wasn't able to make us tonight because work called him in later, gave it 4 out of 5. He gave it 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'll take that from Jelani.
Jelani can be overly critical at times. What about you, Steph? Kick us off. Out of 5, you did.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 5. This, rewatching this made me realize why I dug it when I first saw it when I was and why it had a profound effect on my filmmaking taste. We've all said the best things about it. It's just from the structure, the characters, the dialogue, the message, the energy. It's just a great film. It's even though it's dated, it stood the test of time. Yeah, 5.
Absolutely. 5 you digs. A perfect score from Steph. What about you, Perry?
There's nothing I don't like about this movie. There's a lot I do like about this movie. Rewatchability is very high for me, among other things that are high. So for the second time tonight, I'm going to give it a 5. Straight up 5 you digs.
A higher score for Go by Perry. More high than Godfather or Godfather 2, which I thought was interesting, but the same score he gave Godfather 3.
I would watch Go 3 more times before I go back and watch the Godfather 1.
Because you could watch Go 3 more times while you would be watching the Godfather again.
That's very true, yeah.
Different movies, different experiences.
Absolutely.
5, I feel you 100%. Yeah. What about you, Brooks?
I was surprised how much I like this movie. I give it a 5 too. I mean, this movie it sends me back. It gets me reminiscing about times like, both good and bad. But it's like it's so enjoyable. Like, it's just such an enjoyable movie, which is odd. Usually I think of an enjoyable, I think like an action movie or a straight comedy.
Yeah.
This movie is kind of like a little bit of both. It's kind of like a little bit of drama, a little comedy, a little action, but it's great. I liked it, and like it is very like you notice how it's super Christmassy too. Like there's Christmas shit all up in this movie.
It's not
But
just
it's not-
incidentally Christmas like Lethal Weapon or something, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's part of it.
Plays right.
And like the whole
Timothy
party is
Olyphant,
like a Christmas
shirtless.
party. This whole rave that they're throwing, it's like a Christmas rave.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
you're getting married. What, like you're getting married? No, like the name of the chick is Mary, you fucking idiot.
Their banter was the best, bro.
Yeah, I would like to have seen Todd and Simon on screen more together. Like I would have loved a
Yes.
sequel. Like I would have loved to go back for this one. So a perfect score so far across the board, except for Jelani. Jelani's not here right now. So there
So
you
this
go.
score doesn't.
I
count,
think
right?
that is a 5, and it's 4. We'll bump it up. for Julian.
We'll just bump it up. Mark says a solid little movie, flashes of brilliance, still a little Pulp Fiction light. Really don't like the whole Simon sequence. 3.5. Fair enough, and a 4 from Triple B.
Solid.
For me, I'm right there with the panel though. 5 you digs. This is one of my favorite movies. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. It's like Gremlins, Black Christmas, and then Go. Like I fucking love this movie. So glad Steph picked this for Blaine Fable a few months ago. So glad we got to revisit it again. Twice I've watched this movie this year. It is going to be a staple because no excuse. I got it on VHS and on the Blu-ray, and I love that movie. And Columbia, Sony, get this fucker out. People need to see this movie. Let it be streamed. Let it out there. Like people need to be able to easily see this movie because this is going to blow people away. I love when Perry mentioned the Fast Times at Richmond High bit. I mentioned the Days Confused bit. Suburbia is another one I kind of put in this, the Richard Linklater one. This is one of those movies that encapsulates a place, a time, and a generation. Yep. And it does it exceptionally well. So Jelani's not here, so we're not going to count him. So 5, 5, 5, 5 for a PCP average of 5 you dig station, y'all. No 69 needed when it's perfect. You know what I'm saying? But a perfect score always involves a 69.
Exactly. Or 96.
All right. We're going to be talking about another one of my favorite Christmas movies next week. For our final PCP movie night of 2022, we're going to be talking about Batman Returns. Next week, here on PCP movie night, another great Christmas movie. Definitely in my top 5, probably right behind Go. It might be Gremlins, Black Christmas, the original.
I thought you were talking about like the 07
I don't want to piss off Dylan. The original. And then Go, and then maybe Batman Returns, and then maybe Scrooged at number 5, which we did last year. But we got one more PCP movie night, but it's not over. We got a grand plan for PCP movie night in 2023. Find out the opening shots. The first 2 months will be revealed on Rockin' Robbie Live on Sunday. And then Dylan's Horror Show on Saturday, though. Join us as we talk about Your Next, which was suggested by Two Gun Pedro. So I'm excited to check that out. Steph, you got anything you want to mention? Final thoughts?
No. Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas. Perry, final thoughts?
Merry Christmas. That seems like a good way to end it, you know? Yeah, I like it.
Final thoughts?
It's not Christmas yet, really.
Close.
It's Christmas time.
Holiday spirit.
Yeah, I'm feeling
time.
jolly.
Happy holidays.
Christmas time is here. Time for joy and cheer and all that.
All right. And for my final thought, station pop, pop, boom, and Merry fucking Christmas.
Right.